Hello again, students. Today we're going to be combining everything you've learned up to this point to complete some real doozies of problems. When I say they're doozies, I mean something like number 1, where you have addition and subtraction and fractions and simplifying and everything you've learned. Now, the great news is I don't even have to teach you anything new to complete these problems. Okay, like always, if you have a really complex problem, please just take it in parts and do it one thing at a time, and it becomes a pretty easy problem. If you look at number 1, for instance, you really have 2 expressions within this one big expression. Okay, one is that expression in the numerator here, which is just a simple subtraction problem. One is that expression in the denominator here, which again, a little bit more complicated, but it's just addition and subtraction. So I'm going to take these into 2 separate parts, do them one at a time, and then we'll put them all together, and you'll see that it's not so bad. So let's start the numerator, which is 1x squared minus 1y squared. Remember the checklist we went through where first thing you do if you're subtracting, you have to find a common denominator. So what do x squared and y squared have in common? Ooh, well, I have 2 x's here, 2 y's here. Shoot, they have nothing in common. So our first fraction needs 2 y's, or y squared. I'm going to multiply those together. Our second fraction, we don't have any x's. We're going to need 2 x's, so we're going to multiply by x squared here. Now, if you simplify that out, okay, our first fraction, you're going to get y squared on top, and either x squared, y squared, or y squared, x squared, doesn't really matter the order, on bottom. Our second fraction, we have x squared on top, and the same exact denominator because we created our common denominator. Now I want to rewrite this as one big fraction. Okay, so here's my common denominator. I have y squared on top minus x squared. And can I subtract y squared minus x squared? No, because they're not like terms. Can I simplify? Maybe. And in order to simplify, remember the fraction has to be, or the part of the fractions both have to be in its fully factored form. So if I can factor, I should. Now the denominator is just x squared, y squared. There's no addition or subtraction. You can't factor that. This y squared minus x squared, though, that's definitely one of my special cases. There are 2 terms, and both y squared and x squared are perfect squares. So this is going to be a difference of 2 squares. Remember, that's the same 2 terms. We have our y and x as our square root of each part here. One's going to be addition, one's going to be subtraction. If you FOIL them out, you should get y squared minus x squared. Again, if you don't feel comfortable with factoring, please come and get help. So our final fraction then is y plus x times y minus x over x squared, y squared. Now, there are no common factors we can cancel out at this point, so we are done with part 1 of this problem here. Let's go ahead and do the same thing with the denominator. So we have 1 over x squared minus 2 over xy plus 1 over y squared. Okay, so first thing we want to do is look for that common denominator. And if you don't see it as it's written, let's rewrite this. I have 2 x's, I have an x and a y, and I have a y and a y. You could take this problem in 2 parts and just do these 2 fractions and then subtract the third, but this one's pretty simple, so I'm going to do them all at once. So my first fraction has an x and an x. It doesn't have any y's. The maximum amount of y's I have here is 2. So my first fraction is going to need 2 y's. My second fraction has 1 x and 1 y. The maximum x's I have is 2. The maximum y's I have is 2, so this needs 1 x and 1 y. Last one needs those 2 x's then. And again, anything you multiply the denominator by, you have to multiply the numerator by. And you don't have to write those as xx, you can write that as x squared, which is what I'll do right now. So this is going to turn into y squared minus 2xy plus x squared over my common denominator, which is y squared, x squared. Looks familiar, doesn't it? Now again, like the last problem, you want to factor this if possible. Denominator you can't factor, but the numerator is again one of my special cases, or you can split the middle, you can guess and check, but this is a perfect square trinomial. That means that my first term and my last term are both perfect squares. My middle term is 2 times the square root of my first term and my last term. That's what this is. So I know that this is going to factor to be the square root of my first term, sum sign, the square root of my last term, squared. And in this case, since it's subtraction, it's going to have the subtraction sign in the factored form as well. And my denominator stays the same. So factoring was super, super easy. It's good news for us if we know our shortcuts. If we don't, we got to learn them. And now we have a simplified version of our original problem. So let's go ahead and put this back into the big doozy of a problem over here. So first one, we had y minus x times y plus x over y squared, or was it x squared? X squared y squared or y squared x squared. Hopefully you're realizing why I'm changing the order just to be consistent. And that was divided by y minus x squared over y squared x squared. Okay, notice we see some similarities here. So this problem is going to wind up being pretty simple now that we've simplified the two portions as much as possible. When we're dividing, what is the same thing as dividing is what we want to ask ourselves. What operation can we do? And hopefully by now, we've talked about this, we all know that division is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. It makes our lives a whole lot easier. So I'm just going to multiply by the reciprocal of the denominator. So this becomes y squared x squared, there's a mistake there, there should be no subtraction sign, over y minus x squared. Now I could write it as y minus x squared, but instead I'm going to kind of break this up as y minus x times y minus x because I'm about to go and start canceling common factors. Okay, so any common things you see here, you can go ahead and cancel either from the numerator of this and the denominator of this, or you can cancel across since it's being multiplied. So I can cross cancel this way, so on and so forth. In this case, I see a common y minus x, so I can cancel that out. I see a common y squared, cancel that out. Common x squared, cancel that out. Wow, this really complicated problem just became really simple because everything winds up canceling really nicely, and I just get y plus x left in the numerator and y minus x left in the denominator. You can't factor these any further. That means you can't simplify any further, and you are done. Moral of the story of this video is when you get a really complicated problem, please break it down into its parts, take it one step at a time, and it's all things you know built into one complicated problem. So next time you see a really ugly problem, don't freak out. Okay? Have some confidence and just look and see what you know about the problem and start from there. Now, number 2 doesn't have any multiplication or division. This is simply working on simplifying. So I want you to do this at home and bring it back tomorrow. Just because a problem looks different doesn't mean you do the steps any differently. Okay, so think about that. Complete this. Make sure you write down any questions you had during the video and ask away in class tomorrow. Have a good rest of your night.